Hi, this is a quick video to talk through the marking scheme and give you an illustration of marking or assessing an assignment as part of your assessed works. Remember that formative assignment. So there's three parts. So what I thought I'd do to get us going with this is, you've all had student A. I gave that out in the class. That's one of the and a submission from last year for a very similar question or piece of work. So I'm just going to talk through the marking scheme, and then we're going to have a look at student A and some of the comments, and we started to talk about these in the class, remember in the lecture. So there's three parts of the question, you remember rightly: part A, part B, part C, all worth slightly different marks. This is all about social media. It's using social media for learning. So this is about you and your experiences and other students' experiences and ideas of social media. So part A is simply, what Web 2 technology or social media are you interested in? And you need to describe two features that you'll find useful in your learning. Firstly, it's only 100 words and it's 7 marks. And I've split the marks down as follows. So criteria 1 is, does the submission meet the word count? So you'll be allocating you'll be given 2 marks if you write between 90 to 110 words for this complete answer. If you write more or less, I'll give you no marks. So that's your word count mark. The second criteria for this is the Web 2 technology clearly stated, including a web link? And this is, for this part, criteria 1, you're given 1 mark maximum, and what you need to do then is state what is the Web 2 or the social media, and here is a link to the social media service. For instance, the social media I'm particularly interested in, or the social media I'm looking for learning and teaching, is Twitter. And then Twitter is http://www.twitter.com, and it'll be as simple as that, and that's worth 1 mark. I'm going to have to be able to click on this and it should work. Okay, so I need to know what it is and what's its URL. The third criteria for this question, which is worth 4 marks, a total of 4 marks, and as you see is the following. For each of the 2 features you've identified, so if I'm talking about Twitter, I need to identify 2 features about Twitter. I need to identify what they are and describe how they work, or how the feature works. And if I break this down, so if the feature is named and they describe what the feature is, then allocate 2 marks. Remove a mark if it is not named and or there's no clear description. Okay, so I'm looking for 2 features. What is it? What does that feature let you do? Another feature, what is it? What does that feature let you do? And that would be worth 2 marks apiece, adding up to 4 marks. Part B is a little bit longer. That's the bulk of the question in a sense. This one is worth, altogether is going to be worth 200 words, and it's going to give you a total of 13 marks for this section. And this wants you to use examples to explain how you or other people have used the service you mentioned about to enhance your or their learning. So whatever I've mentioned in part 1, in this case say Twitter, I then need to apply how it's been used to enhance my learning, and I also need to look at how it's enhanced other people's learning. There should be an example from your use, and there should be one from the literature. Yeah. So again, the criteria are put into 3 sections. 2 of them are very transparent. They're very black and white, so you don't really need to think about them. That's criteria 1 and criteria 3. So firstly, there's the standard word count. If you're within word limits, you get 2 marks. If you're outside the word limit, you'll get no marks. And if it's 200 words, it's give or take 10%, or 5% in a sense. So I'll come into 210 words or 190 words. Just get between those, you'll be fine. The other criteria that's quite black and white, of course, is referencing. So the idea here is at UCS, of course, many disciplines will use the Harvard referencing model. And the idea here is, if you you should be expecting to make reference to web resources and articles, because I've asked you to do that for criteria 2. Or I've asked you to pay for an example from the literature. So you expect, when you use the literature, to use the Harvard referencing to do that. I've included in the Blackboard site, the Learn UCS site, the link to the Harvard referencing for URLs for web-based resources. You just look at the way Harvard references it and do it the same for you. And the key really is, or the key to remember is, yes, you'll put in an organization, you'll give it the URL of what it's from, and you'll put something called accessed. And the idea of this is quite straightforward. If you've accessed it on a certain day, I should be able to click on that URL and I note when you accessed it. If you have used references which are expected, I give you 2 marks if you correctly reference them. If you haven't, you get no marks. So those 2 are quite black and white. For part B, the real thinking, in the sense of the less black and white, the more subjective, where you have to think and interpret as the marker, is for the 2 examples. One based on literature, one based on yourself. What we need, or what we're looking for, is you've clearly explained how it has been used to enhance learning. Yeah? And you get 2 examples, so each example is worth 3 marks. And in a sense, if you think about the flow, I'm looking at what you've done as one of the features you've mentioned in the first section up here. You need to clearly show or demonstrate that it has worked. So Twitter, it might be as simple as I follow institution X. You know, say I follow I'm interested in economics or whatever, and I'm following the World Bank or the Economist. And a Twitter feed from the Economist, one of their postings is this. It's got a link in it. This posting sounded really relevant. I clicked on the link and I went to the website where I'd find the full article for me to read. Where it's enhancing my learning is because the Economist will keep me up to date of the latest information or news in that area. So I'm able to keep up to date with latest current affairs or current contents and discussions around the Economist, so around economics, and I'm using the Economist Twitter feed to highlight to me what people are writing about and take it from there. So we'll feed into that and I'll link to that website. So it's that sort of journey we're looking for, in a sense. Yeah. From the end of that, I can clearly see you follow the Economist. Here's a post. If you click on the link within the post, this is what got my interest. I clicked on the link, I read the further stuff, this told me about this sort of stuff, and this is useful in my learning because really it's raised my awareness. We also allocate a mark because just take the page off of here. We're also going to allocate a mark if it persuades you as a reader. You'd read that and think, do you know what, that actually sounds like it could enhance or improve my learning, so I'm going to allocate a mark there. It persuades me that if I want to now start using the Economist to follow things appropriately there, or use Twitter, as a method of following people to find out about information. Now then you need to find a link to another use, somebody else's where they've used it to achieve a learning task. Now with Twitter is really nice because I gave you the example in the lecture from the student, from one of our own students at UCS. Otherwise, I'd suggest a really nice way is get onto the Summons, the UCS Library Gateway, get into the Summons search engine, type in Twitter Learning and Teaching, and it will come back with loads of journal articles or about people using Twitter and learning and teaching, or it might be YouTube, or it might be Facebook, or it might be Diigo, web social bookmarking, or it might be Google Docs, something like that. And that will trawl through vast databases to give you some results. And one of those articles is what you need. If you look for the case study stuff, it's really nice because it'll be, its application in nursing or its application in arts or whatever. Right, the final part, this question is worth, it's only going to take me 150 words, it's worth 12 marks. This is about what steps you are going to take to reduce the risks of using whatever web or social media you've talked about. Now the main emphasis, or where you'll find lots of information, is the link I've put in, the do's and the don'ts link I put into Learn UCS about how this is based on guidelines from other universities, Cumbria, etc. and the NHS and people like that. So that's your main source of information. Anyway, split down the standard criteria. There's the word allocation. It's only 150, so if you stay between 140 and 160 words, I'll give you 2 marks. If you go over that, you'll get no marks. The referencing criteria is exactly the same. We're going to expect you to have a look here. Make sure it's properly referenced. So again, look at that. If you have referenced it properly, a name of an organisation or whatever, the URL and the access date, you'll get your 2 marks. If you miss one of those, you'll get no marks. And then here you've got to apply the 2 points. Yeah. So it's going to be there 4 marks. So you need 2 of them, and you're going to be allocated 4 marks. This is for each. This is quite a lot of marks, really, if you think about it. So what I'd be expecting is, what is the point? How you've taken that on board with the social media you're using. And this really means you've got to think about the social media. So for instance, about taking archives and backups, how appropriate is it? Or controlling your profile within it, how appropriate is it? So have a really good look through some of those points and try to tease it out. Again, what we're looking for is you doing something, identifying a risk from using the technology, and what you have done to mitigate, to reduce that risk. So look at the bullet points, bring up the risks, and that's it. That's the marking criteria done. So we're happy with that. What about looking at a previous students or a previous answer as we come through? Now I've just taken student A as we discussed. Now when we did the clicker activity in class, we're pretty similar markings for section A. They all fit in quite nicely. So as we go through, and I think if you read through this, it's within the words, which is good. So it's 2 marks. They name it and put a URL in, which is 2 marks. So that's Twitter. And then if you look at the bookmarks or the footer notes, here you get the web address, so I'm going to give them marks for that. And then they give me the information I'm looking for, the 2. Now here is quite interesting because one of them is good, is really good. So users can subscribe to other users' accounts, a process called following, and therefore view everything this user posts. So that's really good. That's a feature, following by subscribing and getting all the information from it. So that's worth 2 marks in my book. That's really good. Then they don't, with the other stuff they talk about, i.e. retweets, tagging, they start to put in lots of different hashtags. They start to put in lots of different ideas, links to websites, posting, shortening URLs, but it's a description. It's never as clear and succinct as this one. So overall, I'm only going to give them 3 marks for instead of 4 marks for that part. So altogether, they'll get 6 marks. So quite a good start, yeah. 6 out of 7, brilliant start. The second section, they're in the word limit, so they're fine, but they've not used the Harvard referencing model. If you look at the footnotes on this, it's just the URL. It's not the accessed by, and it's not the name of the organisation or whatever it is, the person at the front. Yeah, and it's as simple as that. By missing that key bit of information, they, instead of getting 2 marks, they get 0 marks. So we need to remember that. The other things I put down is, as you read through this, I'm actually going to allocate. They didn't mention anything from the literature or the case study, therefore there are their options of they get 0 for one of them. Then if I look at how they've used it, I'm thinking as I reread this, they never really clearly explained how it had been used, what it would be good to do, and what evidence, or given me any evidence. Now Twitter, as I say, is quite nice because I don't need to really know about 1.6, and for instance, I don't need to know about 1.6 billion searches a day. That's not answering the question set, how they've used it to enhance their learning. That's just giving me facts that I could find somewhere else. So so again with Twitter, as I say, it'd be quite useful. It could be, my learning is enhanced by keeping up to date with current discussions within my discipline. I use the follow in Twitter to follow something like The Economist, and the example is this is a post or this is a tweet from The Economist. This has got a link in it to a URL. I click on the link, the website, the full article is here. By reading this, I'm now much clearer in my understanding of this issue. And that really is what we're looking for. So here they got very few marks in that sense. Yeah, they got no marks. They didn't give me anybody else, and it was a little bit descriptive. I think it lacked that evidence. Also, I didn't feel it persuaded me of any benefits for learning of using Twitter. So I'm not going to allocate them the mark there. Right. So section C of it, or the third part, I'll try and give you the notes at the same time as I go through it as I did the last one. In fact, I'll do it this way.